sensitive topics through storytelling, through the means of, hey, I really want you to understand the value of data. When we were learning how to walk, crawl, and run, we had a reinforcement learning mechanism that we have trained and developed internally. So again, as you're thinking about part one, which you're seeing here, and then on part two, you want to be able to articulate some of the human in the loop and human in the loop decisioning, right? So we talk about artificial intelligence, gives you answer, BI gives you option, cognitive intelligence makes the decision. Thank you again for joining our weekly artificial intelligence micro learning sessions. Looking forward to having you guys on Fridays and giving us the breakdown of what it is that you're learning this week. And so for this week's topics is a movie, right? We're going to talk about A Great Flood, a movie from Netflix that uses a storytelling for understanding how artificial intelligence is actually trained. And this is not a movie about artificial intelligence at all. It's all about a flood and a mother's emotions to her child. So, as we're discussing artificial intelligence week by week, one of the things that we really want to articulate is that for the last 5 years, we have really done lots of TV shows and movies that we've breaking it down from hardware, software, and data perspective to say if, say, for example, Black Mirror has lots of data leakage, data safety, privacy, IPs, things of that nature. So if that's the core part that a lot of people don't understand, a TV show does a very good job of articulating those sensitive topics through storytelling, through the means of, hey, I really want you to understand the value of data, and I really want you to understand the value of aggregated data. So let me tell you a story, right? Let me tell you a story how those data are being processed by a software and how these hardwares are enabling those data processing because those hardwares are either owned by us or we're subscribing this hardware from a big hardware companies. Okay, so The Great Flood is a movie, like we talked about, the mother and child's relationship, emotions, and training on those emotions. So, a spoiler, we're not going to do that on this one. We're going to do a spoiler on the next one, which will come out about 30 days after this article. And as you're reviewing this article, if you have any questions on these topics, feel free to reach out. But as you're answering these questions for yourself, please do try to answer these questions for yourself because when you meet us on Friday, you have to be able to articulate these topics, explain them in a economical fashion because it's a business impact analysis. So you want to be able to put a financial justification behind it and use your emotional intelligence to say, I communicate it this way, but how does it work when I have to communicate it for my team or lead my team with those emotional intelligence? So that's your triple EI, economical, explainable, and emotional intelligence. Let's talk about reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is something that you will learn eventually once you really get accustomed to supervised learning and unsupervised learning. There's multiple ways of learning, but reinforcement learning is the one that really captures our imagination. Our imagination says, when we were learning how to walk, crawl, and run, we had a reinforcement learning mechanism that we have trained and developed internally. So when we hear about reinforcement learning, we always gravitate towards it. But here's a simple breakdown of how those data works. As out of all the business use cases, about 65% of those use cases are by supervised learning. And if you're not sure about what supervised learning is, don't worry about it yet, because there's another part called unsupervised learning. So you can kind of imagine what that is. So that 30% is about unsupervised learning, and very less than 5% of them are reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning sounds very logical at first, but you become really accustomed to finding out how often it fails and how unreal it is in real practical world where a machine have to do this reinforcement learning on your behalf. So the cost is high and the output is not really that great. But again, it's made for a very specific type of use cases that reinforcement learning is very good at. One of the discussions that we can have is about assumptions on what it is that we need. So, uh, you have a group of subject matter experts around the table, and they're all articulate their subject matter expertise, their business use cases, and the data ownership that they have. And as you're describing these things, one of the things that I gravitate towards is digital twin. But digital twin is not necessarily what the answer is. The answer could be that it's AR, VR, or MR. And this AR, VR, MR is far more useful for your business use case, for your audience, for your supply chain, for your customers, for your investors. This AR, VRs are far more effective than digital twin will be, right? But a digital twin is eventual steps that you get to with AR, VR. But the point is, as a subject matter expert of digital twin, I can gravitate to a digital twin, but somebody has to be able to articulate against my understanding of why we need digital twin to say AR, VR is a better steps. AR, VR has yeah, better return on investment, it's financially more justifiable, so things of that nature, right? Because I can gravitate towards a certain topic and certain ways of doing things, but my teammates need to be able to articulate why we should gravitate something that is more common sense, something that is more realistic today, even though there's a future contribution of this topic into something that I am very friendly with. As you're thinking about many of these artificial intelligences that are in the pipeline already, and there's some that are coming in the future, physical AI will take really a lot of the cake because physical AI is what's going to really build the machines that are not humanoid robot per se, but build the machines that are just 3D home builders. The machine that just have a single arms that cracks the wall. Whatever the case is, these physical AIs are really what's being trained. And if you watch the movie, you will see how they're being trained and how they can be trained. Because some of the things that, again, little spoiler alert for you, keep an eye on the t shirt, right? If you see the t shirt, think about that t shirt and think about what that t shirt is representing. A lot of the times the confusion comes from how important is AI ops, ML ops, and LLM ops. But the data ops is the most confusing part because the data ops is even far more wider in the spectrum than AI ops and ML ops is. The data ops really have to be something that we have to think about financially, right? As in, if we have to spend the money on our data ops, in this data ops, how do we capture more data as we're utilizing this data? I cannot emphasize that enough on a 45 minutes long call. But if you can just research this part about AI years, which is that amount of data you lose if it mounts up to AI years worth of loss in data that is not being collected, right? So if you have data processing and you have data that you have to feed to it, but there's a gap in between those data feed, that is what IBM calls AI years, right? AI years that you're losing that many years in the AI capabilities. Some of these questions are not answered and it's left blank, just to kind of have us pick up those questions because we don't have much time on Fridays to discuss these. But let's talk about them as many as you can. But if you have any questions and you want to be able to articulate some of these questions, bring those up and we'll cover it. But on our part two, we will have notes for these questions as well. Again, as you're thinking about part one, which you're seeing here, and then on part two, you want to be able to articulate some of the human in the loop and human in the loop decisioning, right? So we talk about artificial intelligence, it gives you answer, BI gives you option, cognitive intelligence makes the decisions. We're not in the cognitive intelligence level yet because we really don't want to outsource the decisions. But what sort of decisions are we going to outsource to the system is something that you can really articulate very well and easy because it's explainable and it has financial justification behind it, the economic side of it, and then the emotional intelligence of why you want to open up some space for other creative things that humans can contribute with. Thank you so much for taking the time to review these questions and joining us on Friday. I'm looking forward to engaging with your questions and having the conversation around the table so that way we all can comfortably communicate with clarity and confidence about what it is that we know about artificial intelligence and how it is that we will lead our team who might be techies, but as a non-techies, how do we contribute to their efforts? This Smart AI community cohort is associated with Pine AI. Pine AI is a deep learning AI program that helps to communicate about artificial intelligence in many multiple layers, and doesn't have to be necessarily all business related. So our next cohort is going to be about digital twin. Digital twin will start in January, and we're continuing with the Upon the AI cohort where we're talking about how non-techies contributes to cybersecurity and cybersecurity for AI. AI security for AI, AI security by AI. So just a something that if you're interested in, you can join us for that as well.